Will town meeting members please take their seats in their respective sections of the hall, and the chairman will give me a count. Precinct 1.
8.
Precinct 1 is 8. Precinct 2. 19. Precinct 2 is 19. You wanted to, let's keep it down. I can't hear. Precinct 3. Precinct 3. 13. Precinct 3 is 13. Precinct 4. Precinct 4 is 17. Precinct 5. Precinct 5 is 12. Precinct 6. Precinct 6 is 17. Precinct 8. Precinct 8 is 11. Precinct 7 is 11, right? What? Precinct 7 is what? I got tripped up here. Precinct 7. 12. That's why I want it quiet in here. Precinct 8. Precinct 8 is 11. Do I see, Mr. Gator, you have a correction? Every little bit counts. What do you got? $109. There are 109 town meeting members present. Will you please rise and join me in saluting the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll ask you to please stand for a moment of silence. For Domingos DeAndrade, who died on May 11th, father of firefighter John E. DeAndrade, and Philomena A. Pasquarelli, mother of former selectman and retired Stoughton police officer Joseph Pasquarelli and his brother patrolman Tony Pasquarelli. Please be seated. That's the ones I just got. So. Just to bring us up to date, last session, some people were not here, maybe here tonight, get you caught up. First of all, each precinct was given a set of yellow papers showing the sequence of the articles that will be taken on tonight, and I misplaced one of mine. Last night, we began our meeting at 7:44 p.m. with 112 members present. Based on standing counts, two different times, were 120 and 100. We took two counts, standing counts. At 8 o'clock, we removed Article 27 from the table and removed the motion for Article 27C1, the ambulance. And then we proceeded from 8:51 to 10:22, handling strictly Article 27 in all its parts and the separate motions. And at 10:25, a consolidated motion. Read too fast, you'll see too wrong. For Article 27, items A to G. And that, I'll read it just into the records. get an idea, we appropriated a sum of $1,877,770 to replace and/or purchase those general capital outlay items listed, recommended by the Finance Committee on the Finance Committee and Taxation in Articles 27, ID 27, and/or voted by town meeting, and that the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, be authorized to borrow $1,767,770 under the various provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, as applicable, and to transfer $10,000 from free cash. The closing motion was unanimous. We adjourned at 10:28 till this evening, and we have the following articles that have been advanced to this evening: Article 58, Article 32, Article 33, which is 5 community preservation projects. We tabled to May 19th, Article 57, Historic Preservation State Theater, and Articles 48, 49, 50, and 51 for that evening. Also slated to follow in sequence after we've dispensed with the first part of this list, the sequence of articles, finishing capital outlay articles, and into the school capital outlay, and that's probably about as far as we'll have the energy to go tonight. Maybe it's all as far as I got anyways, and that's running thin. We've still got several articles tabled. We've kept somehow most of them are tabled till later in the warrant when appropriate. Also was given out copies of the free cash from that was requested in the second session, and that's available. And I just have a question. Do we have a balance in the stabilization fund, or is that printed in the back of the Finance Committee report? Usually we have this.
Mr. Moderator, I can get that for you shortly if you like.
Oh, okay. I didn't know whether I had misplaced it or not. Okay. Are there any comments from the chairman of the Finance Committee?
No, Mr. Moderator, not this time.
All right. I just want to mention again, usually this is the first time we did some combined and complicated warrant articles, but when we do that and we talk about the whole article, you only get one 10-minute spiel to do that, and your time is not surrendered when you're getting an answer to a question. However, remember the old adage, you can sell it in 3 minutes, you raise doubts in 5 minutes, and by after 5 minutes, you're probably starting to lose your support. So some of these, there will be some presentations this evening and some later, so that's probably why we have a thin schedule. On the first motion, is for Article 58, and I recognize the petitioner of record, who's town meeting member, Elliot Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move to amend the Section 2000 of zoning bylaws of the town of Stoughton relative to massage therapists by adding the following sections. Section 200, Attachment 1, Town of Stoughton, Table of Use and Regulations, Principal Uses, Retail and Trade, Item 32, Article 3, Definitions, Massage Therapists, and Article 12, Special Permit Conditions, Licensed Massage Therapist Practice, as printed in the warrant. Do I have a second on that motion?
No, I asked for the second.
Oh, sorry.
I hear a second. Okay, the article, or now it is the motion that's on the floor, and we'll go from there. Mr. Hanson, do you want to make some introductions, or?
I'll do just a brief overview on this. The previous zoning bylaws in Stoughton were taken from a neighboring town, and at the time that was adapted many years ago, the massage therapist was crossed out of that. There was a great deal of misunderstanding about massage therapists. I'm sure you're aware of it. But the massage therapist is part of the medical profession and medical model of treatment. Anybody that's ever been to, or I've in fact, over at the Veterans Administration and at 110 Liberty Street, was treated by a massage therapist. And if it's what you need, it's a miracle. So that is the purpose of this article, is to establish massage therapists in the zonings, as you see here, by right of permitted or by special permit. I would like to, now I'm doing this on behalf of myself, the town, and Doug Tourette, who is a licensed massage therapist. And if you'd like to say something, or you'd have one of your spokesmen. I'll defer to my attorney. All right, this is his attorney, and he will introduce himself and be brief.
And just remember, we have a 10-minute rule.
Yes, sir. Thank you. My name is Scott Dunlap. I'm an attorney, and I proudly represent the American Massage Therapists of America, the American Massage Therapists Association, Massachusetts chapter. I have with me, along with Mr. Tourette, I have Mary White, who is the president of the chapter, and Deb Nugis, who serves on the Law and Legislative Committee. The bylaws in the town of Stoughton came to our attention back in October of last year, and we had one of our AMTA members approached us. She was very excited to become a resident and go into business in the town of Stoughton. She leased an apartment, and she leased a commercial spot and started setting up her facility to act as a massage therapist. She is licensed by the state. After she invested both in her residence and in the business, she came down to Town Hall to get a business certificate, and she was informed that the space she had leased was not zoned for massage therapy. She was frustrated. She appealed to myself and the union, and we examined the bylaws, and there was really nothing that we could do at that point. Unfortunately, she moved back out of town, lost thousands and thousands of dollars, broke both her residential and her commercial lease because she was unable to practice here. She had spent an awful lot of money in promotional materials, et cetera. Notwithstanding that incident, we now spoke with Doug Tourette, who also practices as a licensed massage therapist here in town. But when Doug ran into the same situation, he was required to get his business certificate in conjunction with a fitness facility. So what that meant, and the town was very clear, that if the fitness facility goes out of business, he's out of business. So he invested time, money, expense, set up his facility, and is currently practicing. But it seems to me that since these zoning bylaws were originally enacted, what many of you may not know is that in 2006, the state overtook regulation of the entire massage therapy industry. So in order to hold oneself out as an LMT or a licensed massage therapist, there are now very, very strict regulations. Just to become one, applicants are required to have a high school diploma, be over 18 years old, submit 2 letters of professional reference, one from a medical professional. They must be of good moral character. They shall not have been convicted of a sexually related crime or any crime involving moral turpitude. They must show proof of liability insurance and demonstrate professional competence. In addition, there are very strict regulations on inspection of massage facilities. My clients all get inspected on a random basis, some more frequently than others since these sections of law went into place. Everything has been done according to the AMTA Mass chapter, to make sure that we regulate this industry. We want massage therapy to be recognized as what it is. It's medical treatment. I would like to introduce Mary White, who is the president of the chapter, for a few brief words.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I am a massage therapist of 23 years, and I have to say that, like any of you who have any experience of massage therapy, the field has changed greatly over the past 23 years. Part of the reason I got involved as a volunteer was because it concerned me that, as a professional, that it was really hard in small towns to get the validity that you were looking for as a professional. So the American Massage Therapy Association is 60,000 members strong. And what, as an association, we've tried to do, we are working on doing nationwide, is establishing regulation. The state of Alaska just last week became the 45th state to become state licensed, which means that they're regulated just like we are here in Massachusetts. The Mass chapter of the AMTA, we're looking to do exactly what you're looking to do here in Stoughton. We really are mirroring each other in that we would like to see professional massage therapists be able to make a living just like Doug Tourette and Tanya, who previously had a business here in town, and separate away from those people who try to operate businesses under the facade of massage therapy. We all know that they exist. Our current initiative here in Massachusetts with the AMTA is House Bill 185 that passed out of joint session favorably and is currently in House Ways and Means. The important thing about that bill is that it looks to give the DPL, the Department of Public Licensure, jurisdiction over advertising of electronic means for those people who are trying to skirt the law and operate businesses and advertising on Craigslist, on Facebook, and other electronic means. Unfortunately, back in 2006, the buzzwords of social media, if you can believe it, did not even exist. The web for advertising, just in 2006, which is not that long ago, was not what it is today. So there's a loophole in our law, and we here at the American Massage Therapy Association, we're trying to change that. So changing it across the state would help towns like Stoughton, so that then you wouldn't have to worry about people like Doug Tourette who are operating professional businesses. So I would hope that you would look favorably upon this and give us your support. Thank you.
Any further? Mrs. Frankel, you had a question?
I would like to direct a question to the previous speakers. One of you might be able to answer this question, or to somebody from the zoning board. How many adult entertainment areas do we have in Stoughton that are zoned?
We have somebody.
How many adult entertainment zones do we have in Stoughton? Does anybody know the answer to the question?
I believe there's one.
There's one, and I'm assuming that it includes the only adult entertainment establishment that we have in town? Okay.
The adult district in Stoughton is directly across from the police station, at the corner of School and Road.
Ms. Walsh, could you use the microphone there?
Not that I doubt you, Miss Walsh, but is that accurate? Yes. Okay. So the only adult entertainment is across from the police station to School Street, which right now is condominiums and a steel building. Is that correct? Okay, so I guess my question is, if that's the case, and if that's the case, wouldn't it may have made more sense to say that to regulate this industry, which I wholly believe in, to regulate this industry so that anybody operating as a massage therapist in Stoughton be required to be licensed by the state of Massachusetts before they get a business certificate from the town of Stoughton?
That is,
Mr. Hanson?
That
or
would
Mr.
seem to
Dillon?
make more sense to me. than to regulate it by adult entertainment establishments.
Could I explain that? This
Are
is
you the
Frankel, because-
petitioner?
Well,
Are you the petitioner's representative?
I worked with the petitioner on, and the research on this, and if you look on the very first part, Table of Use Regulations, it says physicians,
No, I
surgeons,
know what it says.
chiropractors, osteopaths, physical therapists, or massage therapists who are duly licensed to practice within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Uh-huh.
And that is the standard wording taken right out of many of the other towns that have
Well,
this.
If that's the case, then anybody who is practicing massage in Stoughton who is not licensed is subject to the state law anyway, and they can be shut down for that. Am I wrong about that?
I'll let the attorney explain that.
Anyone who is holding themselves out as a massage therapist in the state needs to be licensed effective in 2006.
Correct, otherwise they can be shut down by the town.
Correct.
Right, okay. So, but our adult the problem here with this article is not that you want to regulate where they are, but that only area in town also includes a major portion of the center of town. There is only one adult entertainment area. And if you count 1,000 feet from across the street from the police station, then you are taking the entire block of both sides of schools, well, it's Central Street coming into town. You're taking in the entire building that Mr. Kelly has at Trackside Plaza. You are including everything all the way, at least to the corner, 1,000 feet, okay? Because our only adult entertainment section is right there. So you're limiting, are you not?
You may want to look at Article 12, Special Permit Conditions. Mr. Dunlap, if you...
I don't have Article 12 special permit conditions.
If you
so,
read the whole
you know,
bylaw that's being proposed,
the whole bylaw isn't there, so.
it is in your book.
I think the whole thing is rather obsolete, because if they're not licensed, then somebody turns them in and the police and the town take care of it. And they shut them down.
I don't believe that the object here was to limit. My understanding of this bylaw as written is that would open it up to allow them to operate anywhere except in that area. And so for the people like the clients, Doug Tourette and the other woman that I've represented to you, that they would qualify for a business certificate because they are licensed massage therapists and not located in that zone.
Well, if she was a licensed massage therapist, even though it was located in that zone, this bylaw wouldn't correct that. It excludes her from it if she's licensed. She was excluded because wouldn't she have been excluded because she was a licensed massage therapist? I'm missing the point of the article here.
If I might, maybe I hope I try to clarify this. The purpose of, on page 140, it says licensed massage therapist establishments shall not be located less than 1,000 feet from the nearest lot line of any adult entertainment establishment as a zone, and I think that's what you're concerned about. And the other thing, the other disclaimer on that is shall not display any signage inappropriate.
That part I agree with. I mean, I don't want anything saying, let's have happy endings here or whatever. So I understand that part. What I don't understand is why you cannot have a licensed massage therapist within 1,000 feet of our only adult entertainment section, where when that entertainment section includes a major portion of our town and commercial establishment that sets itself up well for this kind of spa facility or whatever that includes them. And the second half of your article does that, as far as I can read it. Am I incorrect?
From what I can read of
I can
this-
make you an example that will make it very much easier, okay? Pure Skin Salon is located on Central Street, around the corner from the condominiums, around the corner from the police department, and it is within 1,000 feet of what Ms. Walsh had indicated is the Adult Entertainment Center. Section or zone center. That is a spa. You should be able to have a massage in a shop. But the second part of your article, the way I'm reading it, and correct me if I'm wrong, prohibits that. You tell me.
If you go by the 1,000 feet,
I mean, we have a whole bunch of lawyers sitting here. Somebody figure it out.
well, I got one here. It seems to be local.
Forgot Michael Bell.
If it pleases the moderator, Doug Tourette would like to say a few words.
Mr. Tourette?
Hi, everyone. I'm Doug Tourette. I'm the guy who got the ball rolling with this. The 1,000-foot rule, and there you are, ma'am. The 1,000-foot rule was actually my concession to the town to say that I wouldn't set up a shop anywhere near Club Alex's. So there would be no confusion of that. Right. I was not aware that the zone was where the zone apparently is. I was speaking in reference to any adult entertainment establishments. So there wouldn't be any confusion between the professional medical service that I offer and anything else.
Essentially, if this article passes, you could in fact set up if you were not even a massage therapist, you could set up one right next to Alex's. What this prevents you from doing is being a licensed one and putting your business within 1,000 feet. That's what it prevents. Where you might want it, in the center of town, which is a nice place for spa businesses.
It is. Agreed. Oh, Howard?
Mr. Tourette?
Right. Right. Howard, establishment or zone? Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
As I read this, it said, shall not be located less than 1,000 feet from the nearest lot line of any an adult establishment, entertainment establishment, or zone. So if we have an adult entertainment thing right on the edge of it, of the zone, then the 1,000 feet, it indeed would have to be coming back. But as it stands now, the way I read it, and if I could be wrong on this, that if there's an establishment and it's further in the center of the zone, we'll say, then he could be perfectly legitimate in putting the establishment and his business closer than 1,000 feet. If that would satisfy the previous speaker, then Or if I could do this, is I could modify that, make a motion to modify that, and make it 500 feet. And to make sure, or strike zone.
I'll before you offer that suggestion, I suggest you discuss that part with the petitioner. Meanwhile, in going on with that, Mr. Blacker.
Jeff Blacker, Precinct 2. I don't know if this is out of order, but I came to make a motion to amend this such that we would strike number 1 completely so that we could allow anybody, if they so chose, to go wherever they wanted if they were licensed in town.
I would defer somebody from before on that subject matter, not only necessary on procedure, but this article has been reviewed at 2 public hearings, one with the planning board and one with the municipal regulations committee, and they have both recommended the thing. And as a little explanation, if you look in the current bylaws, we have a strange set of bylaws that say if it ain't in the bylaw, you can't do it. So, but now, whether you can't do it legally, all right, that's the problem with that bylaw. So this was to, one, address all of these groups together that are, that's the same format we've taken from another town that uses the same consultants that wrote our bylaws. But I would ask for somebody from the planning board who understands their bylaws a little better than.
No, that's fine, but for me, if this stays like this, I'm going to vote it down because I think it's too restrictive. If somehow it needs to change and everybody can figure that out, but I think if we want massage therapists in town, they shouldn't be restricted. We should only restrict people that we don't want in town.
Actually, I may agree with you on some of that. However, if you read this table, it shows that's one is a business operation.
But
If you read the chart where there's a dash,
I understand, but it still restricts it. I mean, you can ask town council, but this verbiage restricts a licensed therapist to be anywhere within 1,000 feet of downtown, or any feet, even if they change it to 500. I don't think that's right.
I think I'll let town council.
Excuse me? I have a point of information. Is this, didn't the speaker make a motion? And I believe our motion's debatable, the act that he made a motion?
I didn't hear a second from it. And
I second. Thank
And
you.
I don't have it in writing either.
It's a delete.
So, it's even if it's a deletion,
Take your line,
the
pencil,
question
cross it
was
off.
raised to explain this. And when it's proper to make, if we start amending these things halfway through without having written things in proper review, then there is no chance to this thing to be done.
Well, if we
That-
can't have written things and we have to have proper review, that would, if you're talking proper review as in hearings, then nothing can ever be amended according to what you're saying. So, as I believe there was a motion, an amended
I'm going
motion.
to rule right now that motion is not in proper form. However, there was a question that somebody wanted to ask town council, and I'll let town council explain how these charts work. And you,
Where did he go? The gentleman that was...
Mr. Blacker. Mr. Blacker? The council would like to respond to your questions and a clarification before we do anything.
Mr. Blacker, you had mentioned in your motion that you were looking to strike number 1, but just for purposes of clarification, this article actually has, the article has sections 1, 2, and 3. And I think the piece you're referring to is item, or I should say under section 3 of the article, which is amending Article 12, special permit conditions. And then it talks about section 200-77.2, and you're talking about within that,
Correct.
you want to strike that number 1 that's listed there. Is that correct? And
Correct.
as I understand, what you're saying is that because it states that it shall not be located less than 1,000 feet from the nearest lot line of any adult entertainment establishment or zone, that at least to the extent that someone might want to put something within 1,000 feet, that would prevent them from doing that.
Correct. I mean, if they wanted to be right next to Alex's, I don't suggest it myself, but if they wanted to be there, they should have a right to be there.
And under what's written, as written, and again, this isn't so much a legal question at this point, it's more of a policy question for the town, but as written, you're correct that it would limit it from 1,000 feet from the nearest lot line of either an adult entertainment establishment or zone.
Right.
So you're not incorrect in terms of what it states. Whether or not this town meeting wants to modify that or however,
Right, but-
that's more of a policy decision.
And
for
Mr.
the town.
Moderator, I've been in town meeting where we have amended warrant articles, so I don't understand why, and we haven't waited 30 hours to do so. So,
Well, I'm going to tell you why we have that 30-hour rule, because for many, many years, we were having people do this thing. That's one of the reasons, first of all, that we conduct public hearings and give you 2 weeks to review this. And that is something that I'm very, very assertive on since I've been in town meeting involved with this charter and the bylaws of the town, that every time that we try to repair and patch things on the floor, it turns into a big mess when it gets into the Attorney General's office, and they send little notes back saying, yes, you shouldn't have done that, no, you shouldn't have done that, or
would you
whatever.
allow the petitioner to strike that?
Well, the petitioner, if he's in agreement,
Because
wants
again,
to
I
do
think a
that,
lot of
then
this
they-
body is going to vote it down if he doesn't strike it, and it would be really unfortunate because we do want to help people like him.
well, then I'll let them confer on that before I accept.
Okay?
That's what you call a friendly modification or amendment, which reduces the scope of the article, and that will be significant. Mr. Hanson, do you want to respond on behalf of the petitioner?
I would like to respond. The petitioner is suggested, and perhaps the previous speaker will take it as a friendly amendment to strike line 1. It says, shall not be less than 1,000 feet, etc., as printed in the warrant on page 140.
In other words, your motion now is being restated as printed in the warrant, with the exception of removing in section, the third part, where it says Article 12, Special Permit Conditions. I'm reading this also into the records. Removing under 0, that's not 0, Part O, licensed massage therapist, removing the first sentence under licensed massage therapist establishments, and that section that says shall not be located less than 1,000 feet from the nearest lot line of any adult establishment zone, And I would also recommend that if you do that, then number 2 would become number 1.
That is the motion, and that I would accept the suggestion that strike line 1 and call line 2 1. Although if you only have one line, I suppose you don't have to number it.
That depends.
But if it pleases the chair and the body, I would indeed, and I think we had a second for striking that line 1.
I did hear that. Now, just as a matter of courtesy, so that I will take a vote on that amendment so that they understand that you have altered this main motion. I think you've had enough discussion unless there's somebody further wants to discuss striking that out.
From the two standing committees that heard the article as it stood.
Okay, I will just hold that, all right, before we do. Do we have the chairman of the planning board present, Mr. Scardino?
Joe Scardino, Chairman of the Planning Board, member of Precinct 1. The Planning Board heard this, and I must say that I think that the gloss that was put on this by the speakers this evening wasn't readily apparent to the both boards. And I certainly have some concerns about tinkering with a statute that has further cross-references without having a chance to thoroughly vet this. And certainly would recommend so. The turn of events has caused me to think twice about this. And I can't speak for the rest of the board because obviously we didn't take a vote on this motion. I don't know if Mr. Cohen wants to come up and talk about municipal regs.
Mr. Cohen, could you give the general opinion of the Municipal Regulations Committee?
The Municipal Regulations Committee, we were looking at the article, we're 100% in favor of it. Asked me if we're zoning people. We're not. We're municipal regulation people. And it didn't even come across to us to even think of the zoning on this. My own opinion is leave it alone. If we have to amend this, and I'm only talking for myself personally, but as far as just vote the thing and come back if we have to next, we're going to have a special town meeting in the fall, there's no question. The bottom line is, we never brought up the zoning in this. We think we voted unanimously for the concept of having it here and letting them have it anywhere in the town. That's what we thought we were doing. So if there's anyone that has any questions of that, Mr. Scardino said he has reservation. He's the planning board. But I'd hate to see a business wait another 6 months to come in here since we're supposed to be a friendly town and let people in here. So let's get on with this, either vote it up or down or refer it to the next town meeting and correct what you have to do or vote this thing.
We cannot, Mr. Cohen, just a one correction. I know that you said refer to the next town meeting. We cannot legally do that.
Okay. Then, Mr. Moderator, can I ask a question here? Can we vote this article the way it is and come back and fix? Well, you're not going to fix it now. I mean, I don't see how you can fix this. Or table it. Can we table this and bring it back?
No. Before you, I'm not accepting the motion to table, and I don't think anybody else is. Mr. Anzavino has asked a question, wants to have a question asked or answered on the article itself. Right. Because we haven't really accepted that.
John Anzavino, Precinct 4. I just need something explained because it seems to be contradictory
in my mind, under Section 2 of this article, actually, there's two things. It says to add under Section 200-3, Article 2, definitions, the following. Change underlined. There's nothing underlined, so I don't think there's any change, I guess. That's the way but if you look at number 5, now first it says adult entertainment establishments, then it says 5, massager services establishments.
That R is a typo.
Huh?
That R on massage,
Well, that's fine.
just a typo.
But massage service establishments. And it then states, the practice of massage shall not include the following individuals, while I believe it means engaged in the performance of duties of their respective professions. And then they list massage therapists, which just seems to be contradictory to me. So it seems to say that the practice of massage shall not include the following people, and that's a massage therapist. So it might be me, it could be, but I look at this and it baffles me.
Mr. Anzavino, if you
Yes,
look
Mr.
very
Moderator.
carefully, now this wording was taken right out of another existing town's bylaws. It says, massage therapists who are duly licensed to practice their respective professions in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. That's,
Mr. Moderator, you may have taken it from another town. That doesn't mean that they got it right. What I'm saying is, and look, if you can explain it to me, that's great, because I just don't understand how you say the practice of massage shall not include the following, and then you list a massage therapist. So it's very confusing to me. It really is, and I'm not making light of this. I mean, I understand the woman that had come in and ended up having to leave and so forth, and that was very unfortunate because the state does license it, and I know the state also requires them, when they establish a business, to make sure that they're in line with the local zoning. So it was very unfortunate for that particular individual that it didn't work out, and I have no problems with the people coming in. I do have an issue with letting them come in anywhere, and I really don't want to see them proliferating in residential areas. I'd rather see it kept the way the chart shows in business or the industrial zones. But for this particular thing, there is no underlying changes, so that tells me this is already in there. And if it's not, then that's a concern, because I don't know what changed. And again, it just seems to say that this particular line of business can't be performed by the massage therapist. So just explain it so I can understand how it allows it.
Pat,
They added the word massage therapist to 5B1.
Yeah, and it still says shall not.
Right, so they added massage therapist to the code, it was not there.
Well, apparently the existing one didn't have massage therapist listed here, so what it did was it prevented anybody else from doing it, and now you're preventing the people that you're trying to allow to have the business from doing it by adding that in. So, I don't know, I mean, it just doesn't seem to be well presented. I mean, it seems like a number of people certainly have a number of questions with the way it's presented. We have a question about not limiting it to the 1,000 feet, let them go within the 1,000 feet. No problem. I do have a problem with it going residential areas. I think they should keep it in the business. But the way this is written, to me, it prevents the massage therapist from doing the massage. So, I mean, if we pass it, I don't know, I think we create a zoning that doesn't allow anybody to do it. So it's just me. I'm not a zoning specialist, but it's just the way I read it.
Ms. White?
Okay, just clarification on what the gentleman before said. So one thing I'm going to do, which really I never ever want to do, is put massage therapy and adult entertainment establishments in the same sentences. But the reason why that massage therapy was being excluded was because under your bylaw where it says adult entertainment establishments, massage service establishments, the practice of massage shall not include the following individuals. It then goes on to list physicians, surgeons, chiropractors, osteopaths, physical therapists. Why we were saying to add massage therapists is so that it would classify us with those providers of the healthcare field that we now operate in. You will not see physicians, physical therapists, osteopaths or chiropractors providing any of their services within adult entertainment establishments. So that's why we're asking that you include massage therapy with that. So just to clarify from this gentleman, we're not excluding our own profession from actually practicing our own profession. We are saying that we will not be practicing massage therapy in adult entertainment areas. So that's what that means. So I hope that I gave some clarification there.
Mr. Anzavino, since
If it was Ms. White, I want to thank you very much for explaining that, because that makes a whole lot of sense. And with that, Mr. Moderator, you said you need to take the R out of the massager. I think you also have to add the D, while engaged. Other than that, thank you for your time, and thank you again for your explanation.
Mr. Barrett had been waiting. Mr. Barrett? No. Mr. Ventresco.
Peter Ventresco, Precinct 8. I'm in favor of this article because it's an honorable profession, and I know a therapist in Sharon. She operates out of her house, and there never seems to be a problem there. And as far as putting them in within 1,000 feet of an entertainment zone, which I think is a bad idea, having a therapist set up next to Alex's, because if you did, it would be the wrong kind of therapist going in there. And it will be like the lady over there at the front row suggested, them kind of therapies we don't want. So I'm in favor of this.
Mr. Crimmins.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Barry Crimmins, Precinct 4. I think my colleague from Precinct 4 was actually onto something as far as the definitions are concerned, and let me try to explain as quickly and briefly as possible what I'm referring to. The Table of Use Regulations is being amended by this article to add a new section for, as it states, physicians, surgeons, chiropractors, osteopaths, physical therapists, or massage therapists who are duly licensed, and it's permitting them in the various zones, permitting them by special permit in neighborhood business zone. They then attempted to amend the section on definitions, which was a restrictive section. It was a section that included massage therapy within the definition of adult entertainment establishments. So what they're attempting to do in the definition section, part 2 of their amendment, is to suggest that massage therapy and those other licensed professions shall not be included in the definition of massage therapist. That restrictive definition was necessary when we didn't have a use. So one of two things should happen. And I think the easier of the two, and Mr. Moderator, I'll seek some guidance from you. I think basically what needs to happen, because I think the previous speaker from Precinct 4 is correct. We now will have a contradiction between the Table of Use Regulations and the definitions. And God knows we have enough of those contradictions in the zoning bylaw already. We don't need to add any more. We have a Table of Use Regulations amendment that would permit the use. I don't think they need the amendment to the definitions, and I am going to suggest, Mr. Moderator, if it's deemed to be in order, that the entirety of their proposed Section 2 should be deleted, because it does create a contradiction because it does state, as the previous speaker from Precinct 4 indicated, it does state that the practice of massage shall not include those individuals. So it's contradictory to what is contained in the table of use regulation. I'm in favor of these folks being allowed to do what they want to do. I'm also in favor of having a zoning bylaw that makes sense. And so that's the only reason I got up to speak on this matter. I'm not trying to slow down or defeat their intended purpose. I'm trying to suggest a way to make that happen while at the same time not further complicating our zoning bylaw that's already complicated enough. So, Mr. Moderator, would such a motion be in order to strike Section 2? And I'll ask through you, Mr. Moderator, to their counsel if they will accept that. And I'll defer to him. If he doesn't want to accept that for whatever reason, I'm fine with that. But I'm still...
I'll let you confer, and I'll allow the next speaker who is requested, and you can confer with their representative, their legal advisor, whether that's the way they really want to go.
Okay.
Good time for a cookie break.
Mr. Moderator?
Mr. Crimmins.
It was suggested to me that an alternative approach to striking that paragraph, Section 2, in the definitions, would be to simply change the wording under 5B, so where it says the practice of massage, and I now need a... Okay, so the suggestion is to add the phrase, the practice of massage as adult entertainment shall not include the following individuals. I think the intent here was the intent of the bylaw, and I'm beginning to wish I had not got up, but I'm here. I'm here. We're having fun, so let's keep moving forward. The intent of the bylaw was not to have massage therapists in the same definition as adult entertainment. So I think what Mr. O'Regan is suggesting makes sense. It also accomplishes what I was trying to do, which is not to have a contradiction in the bylaw, and it will also, thirdly and most importantly, allow these good folks to practice their trade in a professional manner in the community, if that is what we wish to allow them to do. So, Mr. Moderator, if that amendment can be properly brought forward, otherwise I will sit down.
I think it can be, but I'll let Mr. Recupero speak. I know, because you all want to talk on that same part, so. Mr. Recupero.
I don't want to prolong this. I just want to say that if you look, that is the category of adult entertainment, and I think the reason for that wording in the article was to distinguish between massage therapists and massage. There's a pretty graphic definition in the bylaw of what massage is. I'm not going to read it. But I do want to assure you, and this is more of the point why I stood up, is that right now, under the guidance and oversight of our town planner, we're having our zoning bylaw redone, recodified, and reworked. So if we have to allow someone to do their good work in this town and we want to do it, we can fix it, and I think we're on a time track to do that at a fall town meeting. So, I mean, I wouldn't be too concerned with drilling down on what the perfect language is. We're going to get it perfect, but if someone can be allowed to do their business and it's something that this town meeting seems to want, I'd suggest you vote it. And I kind of like the article with Mrs. Frankel's suggestion of deleting the 1,000-foot restriction. Thank you.
Mr. Murphy, I did see
Peter Murphy, Precinct 2. Move the question.
that's the cutoff debate. Now, that means we've cut off debate on everything. However, what is not, the question is, do you, as the original petitioner, agree to making any of these changes that have been discussed, or leaving it as is?
All of the criticisms and suggestions here are
Speak a
indeed-
little closer to the microphone.
All of these suggestions that were made and criticisms of the way the law was written are valid. Ms. Frankel and the suggestions of the changes there, I think, are in order, and I will certainly accept them as friendly amendments, changes.
All right, then let's go by one, what they are, so that we're all on the same page when we take a vote. The first one, going in the order of the order it's printed in. And it's in section 2. Where is Mr. Crimmins? I just want to make it clear.
Mr. O'Regan.
Oh, Mr. O'Regan.
Mr. Moderator, the insertion would be where it is a parenthetical for B, the practice of massage, and the insert as adult entertainment, and then resuming the text, shall not include. It's only 3 words.
Yes, right there,
And I can do this. I have the book.
Okay.
I concur.
3-word addition, the 3-word addition, so that the beginning of subparagraph B would read, the practice of massage as adult entertainment shall not include.
Is that agreeable to the petition?
Yes, I think that's an excellent suggestion.
Okay. The next issue that I heard from up here was in the 3rd section, Article 12, special permit conditions. Coming down to, was the request to just strike out that whole section that says licensed massage therapist establishments, : you want to remove the first sentence which says shall not be located less than 1,000 feet from the nearest lot line of any adult entertainment establishment or zone.
I will accept that.
You want that is out. All right.
And of course, that means that since we're deleting line 1, line 2 shall be at the top, and you can call that line 1 if you wish.
We'll do that.
The
Who knows, somebody might like to
remuneration.
make one. That's the only, leaves it as the only restriction. Now, I want to be sure that the clerk has got the same information on her records, only because we're writing on all different pieces of paper. It seems that that's agreeable. And as your attorney, does the attorney agree that these are within, all right, as far as I'm concerned, they reduced the scope of the article, so it's not adding anything as far as amending it. Everything that has been heard here is now in the final stage. So at that, is there any further comment from the petitioner? And other than regarding these, no merits or anything else? It's just that you do agree to these?
I think I agree with all of the previous suggestions and modifications, and I do believe it does in fact narrow the scope of the article, so.
I have to make, I'm going to put by consent in my records, by consent of petitioner. 2 parts. So that the original motion, and I'm not going to read the whole thing.
Mercifully.
Because then we could have a long cookie break. No, you didn't get the pun here. The motion was...
No cookies for you.
Okay, I'm going to read this, and I'm going to make it very precise in this sense. And that is to amend the section 200 zoning bylaws of the town of Stoughton relative to massage therapists by adding the following sections. Section 200, attachment 1, town of Stoughton, table of use regulations, principal uses, retail and trade, item 32, Article 2, definitions, that's 1. There's table of use recommendation, which shows a permit. I'm just synopsis, I make everybody got the same thing. CBD district is permitted. GB district, it is permitted. Neighborhood business, it is by special permit. Highway business, it is permitted. And industrial, it is permitted. Under section 2, where we'll now read, and the only place this happens to be in our bylaws, it's not, is under adult entertainment establishment. Number 5, massage service attached establishments will read Part B, the practice of massage as adult entertainment, which is what you've added, shall not include the following individuals while engaged in the performance of their respective professions. And then that follows the same as you've got it printed. Then, under the 3rd section, Article 12, special permit conditions. Under O, licensed massage therapists. As described in the table of use and regulations, principal uses, retail and trade, number 32, licensed massage therapist establishments. 1, shall not display any signage with inappropriate or suggestive graphics or wording. The other line in there has been stricken by consent. I've got to change that. By consent of petitioner. That is the motion. As this is a zoning bylaw, it requires a standing count so that there's no question on our records. I remind the various precinct chairmen who have town meeting members seated elsewhere in the room that to either count them or have them go to your precinct to be counted. Precinct, all those in favor, please rise. And the chairman take a count. This is only town meeting members. Precinct 1. 9. Precinct 1 is 9. Precinct 2. 16. Precinct 2 is 16. Precinct 3? 14. Precinct 3 is 14. Precinct 4? 10. Precinct 4 is 10. Precinct 5? Precinct 5 is 11. Precinct 6? 17? Yes. Precinct 7? Precinct 7 is 13. Precinct 8? 9. Precinct 8 is 9.
Mr. Moderator, I have to make a correction.
You do?
Add one more because
You forgot to
Mr.
take somebody in. Precinct 1 is 10.
Thank you.
All those opposed, please rise. Precinct 1?
0.
Precinct 1 is 0. Precinct 2? Precinct 2 is 2. Precinct 3? 0. Precinct 3 is 0. Precinct 4? Precinct 4 is 4. Precinct 5? Precinct 5 is 1. Precinct 6? Precinct 6 is 0. Precinct 7? Precinct 7 is 0. Precinct 8? Precinct 8 is 1. How's your count? What do you got for the yes? Okay. Now how many no? And so did I. The motion carries as amended, or with the amendments, 100 yes, 8 no.
Thank you.
And we took that vote at 9:03. You would ask me that. I put 9:03. We brought it on. At this time, we're beginning on the Article 32, which is a Community Preservation Committee budget and report. Now, I want to make something very clear when we come to these Articles 32 and 33. Article 32 is to be put on the floor by the Finance Committee. That's the Finance Committee's thing. And then actually, community preservation projects are put on, which is in Article 33, are put on by the representative or chairman of the Community Preservation Committee. Mr. Hill, on the Finance Committee's recommendation for Article 32. Okay. Before. No, they'll get out of the way. Before we do that, I need a motion, which it should be the requested motion.
I'm ready, and there was just a slight language change as we go. I'll point it out as we go. To appropriate or reserve from Community Preservation Fund FY25 estimated, so FY 2015 estimated, that's underlined, annual revenues, and then strike the next 3 words, or available funds.
Oh, wait a minute. I got something a little different here.
Mm-hmm.
Let me check what. Where are you reading that from, Mr. Hill?
After the handout and after consulting with town council on the change.
Once again,
It's the original handout.
which original handout? I have originals.
Oh, I'm sorry, my correct.
Let me get my May 5th material.
It's the same resolution as on page 93 with the one change that you have suggested, removing the words "available funds." So if you go to page 93 of your book, the top of the page is the motion, with the exception of in the end of the second line where it says "or available funds," delete the words "or available funds."
Okay.
Because it is only going to be use of CPA funds.
Okay, that's reasonable. That's the only thing that's different from what's in my, yep.
So do you want me to
We
read
like
it?
to have everything consistent up here, as inconsistent as we are.
So do you want me to read it in its entirety, Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
Article 32, to appropriate a reserve from Community Preservation Fund annual revenues, the amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Committee for committee administrative expenses, debt service, community preservation projects, and other expenses in fiscal year 2015, with each item to be considered a separate appropriation, as printed in the motion and the warrant.
I just want, you might want to summarize it up. If everybody's got a copy of it, it says community preservation, administrative expenses, $33,190. I'm just checking to make sure. Once this is recorded, we want to make sure. Short-term debt service, $7,500. Then it lists the various reservations for community housing, historic resources, and open spaces. Each one is $66,380, and FY 2015 budgeted annual reserve $431,471. That's the motion. I believe you have a presentation. Mr. Morton.
I'm John Morton, Precinct 3. I'm chair of the Community Preservation Committee. The Community Preservation Committee has prepared a financial report. We're going to give you a brief summary of it. There is a handout up front here. As you will see when we go through the report, it gets rather complex because we carry over debt service from year to year. We have statutory requirements to allocate funds to 3 different accounts: the community housing account, historic resources, and open space. And we have a statutory requirement to allocate 5% to administration and the rest to an undesignated account. We can dip into the undesignated account to cover overages in any of the 3 specifically designated accounts. I won't take any more time because it will all become clear. Our treasurer is Michael Barrett, who has done a fantastic job with the help of our town accountant, Mr. Rowe, in trying to bring order to this very complicated accounting problem. So I'd like to turn the mic over to Michael and have him go through a quick presentation with you on the financial condition of the CPA.
Good evening. As John said, my name's Michael Barrett, Precinct 4. I'm the treasurer of the Community Preservation Committee, and for those who don't know me, I'm also a member of the Redevelopment Authority. And I will concede, I'm glad that John mentioned Bill Rowe, because I leave the heavy-duty, complex stuff to Bill, and hopefully I'm going to give you a nice, simple overview of where we are. If we can have the next slide. We've had the CPA revenue from 2009 to 2014, so we've been collecting money for 6 years. We're going to look at how much we achieved there, how much we've got in the bank, if you will. We're going to take a look at what we're expecting for 2015, as we just kind of went over the pieces and the way that's allocated out, but we're going to look at it in total from a revenue perspective. Then we're going to take a look at I look back at what we've done, the projects we've approved over the last 3 years, and then very importantly, shifting gears to the projects that are before you this year, which are fairly significant. And as John sort of alluded to, I just want to give you an overview of what it means in terms of our long-term debt perspective if we go ahead and approve all of the projects that the CPC has recommended. And so we'll take a look at that. If I can have the next slide. The next slide is the summary of revenue for 2009 to 2014. You can see that in 2014, in the middle of the page there, the local surcharge amounted to $535,000. We had a state match of $278,000, which was an extraordinary amount, 52% of the total. The legislature had allotted an extra $25 million into the CPA fund statewide, so it pretty much doubled the amount of money that we were expecting, and is a good thing for us. You can see that, and then the total for fiscal 2014 was $828,000. So on a cumulative basis for the 6 years, we've collected a little over $3 million in local surcharges and almost $4 million in total. Next slide, please. Fiscal 2015, we tend to budget very conservatively, and so we've essentially budgeted flat surcharges at $533,000. The state match is recommended by the state coalition at 23%, so we carried it at that. There is a motion and there's support on Beacon Hill to try to increase that again this year, but there's no guarantees, so we carried the recommended amount. So a total of $664,000, which again on a cumulative basis brings us to a little over $4.6 million from 2009 to 2015. And very importantly in there, I mean, the really key number that's exciting in there is the $985,000, which is most likely going to be over $1 million in state match. That's money that this town would not have, that we can invest in our community because we were good enough to adopt the CPA back in 2009. Next slide, please. Okay, in the last 3 town meetings, 2011, 12, and 13, we approved a total of 17 projects. I've kind of summarized them here so that they would be somewhat legible on the screen, but the big one that most people are familiar with, of course, is the Glen Echo. And these dollar amounts here are what was approved. They do not reflect the actual spending, which will probably be lower in each of these, but Glen Echo for $1.5 million. We had 4 projects related to historic preservation that I've grouped here that were another $299,000. We've had 3 projects that affect Town Hall, most notably the slate roof. We were able to update the pumping station facade, and we had approved $165,000 there. It's another one we underspent, or we spent less. We controlled the funds, or I should say the folks who did the work controlled the funds. We had a number of projects relative to planning for open space and recreation for $124,000. So 3 years worth of projects, 17 projects, $2.3 million in approved projects. If we can have the next slide, please. This year, we had quite a winter, a lot of good meetings and a lot of good projects coming at you. You've seen them in the book. We'll have individual people presenting each one of these, but just roughly, there's $1.5 million for the Turnpike Street housing, which is also attached to the $350,000 of historic preservation on the Swans Tavern building, the Pierce Street Playground, the State Theater, and a project involving some historic house signs. 5 projects, $2,987,000, so significantly more than what we've approved in the past. It's a lot of money. Again, we showed we've got a lot of money, and most of these are being bonded. So if I can have the next slide. I kind of recap the total bonding, and we have 3 projects that have actually been bonded: the Glen Echo acquisition, the Town Hall roof, and the work at the pumping station. We have another project that was approved but has not been completed yet. I've included it in the approval total, so we have $122,000 of committed bonding, assuming that project goes forward. And then we have the 4 new projects tonight that will increase that by another $248,000. So going forward, we're looking at committed funds from the CPA each year of $370,000 just for our debt service. And what I've shown here is a comparison the 370 versus our next year projected surcharge of 533,000. So it's about 70% of our bonding capacity, which is limited to the local surcharge. And it's about 56% of our projected revenue. So between the money that we have still that we haven't spent from prior years and we have additional bonding capacity, I think the message that I'd like to give you here tonight is that the CPA fund remains in very good financial condition for us to continue to do good things for the town with the town's money. One more thought before we move into the specific discussion of each of the CPC recommended projects. I'd like to share with you a quote that was suggested by my friend John Morton. Many of you may be familiar with the quotation or one of its many variations. I suspect John has probably used it on some of you once or twice before. In any case, I believe it's very appropriate in terms of not only the community preservation projects that we're going to talk about tonight and next week, but also in terms of some of the larger issues facing us as a community. It certainly speaks to why I'm here tonight as a member of both the Community Preservation Committee and as a member of the Redevelopment Authority. Next slide, please. And simply put, I'd rather attempt to do something great and fail than attempt to do nothing and succeed. Thank you.
I'd like you to leave that slide up for a while because that is one of the guiding principles of the CPC. We will be bringing to you in the next meetings some things that are new to this town and that have raised a lot of questions at the CPC and will raise questions at this town meeting. We have encouraged public-private partnerships. There are some towns which only fund public-private partnerships. We have encouraged basically the use of CPA funds, which is allowed by statute, in fact almost directed by statute, to encourage private-public partnerships where by putting in a little bit of taxpayers' money, you can leverage a very, very large project. You will see those coming. And there will be, if we're lucky, many of them, where we will fund privately owned entities on a matching basis to create something of great value for the town. And I look forward to bringing those projects to this town meeting as they have been brought to town meetings all over this state, and hope for your support in those. At this point, if there are any questions about the report, I would like to have the budget for the year approved. The budget is printed on page 93. It basically allocates the funds which we have received into the three categories: community housing, historic resources, and open space, and our administrative budget, and then puts the balance in the unrestricted funds. We will draw on those funds to support projects that have already been approved by town meeting, and we will bring to you recommendations for new projects, understanding that the CPA and the CPC do not have any authority to spend money except as that money is approved by this town meeting. So we are not spending money without bringing it to your attention and getting your affirmative vote. With that in mind, I would encourage an affirmative vote on the Article 30, what is it, the one on page 93. Article 3293. I guess there is a motion on the floor.
Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Council wanted me to read in the funding sources, just for the record. So you have a total in the motion of $783,211, $783,211. So there was a handout floating around somewhere. I don't know if you got it, a little spreadsheet there, but this mirrors kind of what I'm going to say now. So $59,463 from the reserve for open space, $33,025 from the reserve for historic resources,
Could you repeat that number again?
$33,025 from the reserve for historic resources, $26,922 from the undesignated fund balance, and $663,801 from fiscal 2015 estimated revenues, for a total of $783,211.
Those are the final numbers and the aggregate numbers. I certainly would accept that modification.
Yes. The chair would like the presiding officer.
The problem we have at the CPC is that you have approved, for example, a Glen Echo purchase of $1.5 million. We have not spent $1.5 million, and we will not spend $1.5 million. However, that account has not been closed. The reason is we still have some residual expenses, such as the payment for an easement on the property to cover. When all the dust settles, it'll be something like probably $1.2 million. I'm sorry, $1.2 million was the purchase price. It'll be about $1.3 million. $200,000 will come back to the CPA fund. At this point, we have to show it as spent, even though it will not be spent. But we have to, it's still set aside until that account is closed. There are other accounts in exactly the same condition, where you allocate up to a number, and then we spend less. When we close that account, the money comes back to the CPA, which makes our accounting very difficult. But we have to have a cutoff date, and that's at the end of the fiscal year, and those numbers will be different next year because a great deal of money may be returned. In no event can we spend more than you approve, but we often spend less.
Is there any further discussion on the CPC budget and report? If there's no further questions, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? I'm declaring it unanimous on a voice vote. The hour is 9:26. Now, each one of these projects will be voted separately. So for 33A, I don't know whether it's labeled 33A, but we've been using 33A, will be the first one, which is to get to the next one. We've got more pages in this book than articles. 33A, which is historic home signage, and the amount, Mr. Morton, the amount of the request. Or do you want the motion? I'll ask for the motion in its entirety.
I move, are you ready for a motion on 33?
Yeah.
I move that the town vote to appropriate or reserve from community preservation funds the amount of $2,125 to be used for from the community preservation, historic preservation funds for the Historical Commission to create, purchase, and place 25 high-quality historic signs on homes identified as historic by the Town of Stoughton's Historical Commission. And we have some people from the Historical Commission here tonight to make a presentation.
I believe Mr. McCarron is present.
I'm Dwight McCarron of the Historical Commission, and I have with me Sandy Spector, who's going to just tell you a few words about this project. And here's what the signs will look like.
Thank you for giving me a few moments of your time.
Bring the microphone a little closer, Sandy. A little closer.
In 1976, to commemorate the 250th anniversary of the founding of Stoughton, the Historical Commission provided homeowners of historical homes in the town with signs identifying their homes as historic. The signs included the original homeowner and the date it was built. These signs are nearly 40 years old and have deteriorated significantly. Some signs are barely legible and no longer provide the uniform and readily identifiable historical marker as originally intended. The Historical Commission feels that it is time to provide homeowners with new signs that will last a lifetime. We have surveyed homeowners and received 25 surveys back from homeowners who would like to replace their current signs with a more permanent marker. This is important to the town because it indicates the age and historical significance to the town. House signs provide visitors to our town with a visual clue as to the history of Stoughton and an immediate impression of pride and commitment that our town holds for Stoughton history and the many generations of townspeople who have lived in these homes. Our sole purpose at the Historical Commission is to maintain and support the integrity of the town of Stoughton's historical resources. Since the Commission has executed a program of this nature before, we feel confident in our ability to make these signs available to homeowners and manage the program into a second phase if needed.
But that's what
I want to point out that the Community Preservation Committee voted unanimously in favor of this, thinking that it's entirely consistent to begin to demonstrate to all the citizens of this town the history that we have here.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions on this? I'll restate the motion so that it's very clear, and that is to appropriate $2,125 from the CPC funds let me start again. To appropriate from CPC funds $2,125 for the Historical Commission to create, purchase, and place signs on homes identified as historic by the Town of Stoughton Historical Commission as described in the warrant and approved by the Stoughton Community Preservation Committee, and that to meet this appropriation, $2,125 be transferred from the Community Preservation Historic Resources Reserve. That's the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? I will declare it unanimous. Wow, that's short. We will go to 33B, Mr. Morton, which is the rehab of community housing.
I move that the town vote to authorize the sum of $1.5 million as printed in the warrant on page 94 to come from CPA funds, which $1.5 million would be bonded under the appropriate statutory authority as set out on page 94. To basically create a community housing project at Swan's Tavern at 710 Turnpike Street, all as printed in the warrant on page 94.
I'll give you copies. Okay. Hold on. And I I have this here too, this different. Right, this is, just as a matter of consistency, which seems to be a lot of inconsistency going on up here. I have a copy here that was based on previous formats, and it was to read it because we have to be more specific than just reading, quote, the recommendation. And it says, the Finance Committee recommends this motion that will be presented by the Community Preservation Committee, and that is to appropriate $1,500,000 for the funding, the acquisition and rehabilitation for community housing for the elderly at 710 Turnpike Street, according to the terms and description as printed in the warrant, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, be authorized to borrow $1,500,000 under Mass General Laws, Chapter 44B, Section 11, or any other enabling authority, including but not limited to Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Sections 7 and 8. This will require a 2/3 vote if we go further with it. I assume that you have a presentation and some discussion.
I'm not understanding. Are you proposing an alternative? Are you proposing an alternative motion?
I am proposing the motion, there's so many things, where is, it's on page 94. 94, 94. Right at the top of, it's on page 95 is the actual thing, actual motion.
That's the Community Preservation Act statute.
Yep. Except you take that to town vote, because we're doing that. I think, Mr. Fair,
This is the motion.
did you find that? Did you find on the top of page 95 is the real motion?
Treasurer, Board of Selectmen?
It starts on 94, but you'll see at the top of page 95.
Right, correct. That's the
form.
That's the practice that you've been following, is reading, essentially treating the Finance Committee recommendation as the motion.
Yep.
And you just need to make reference for the purposes as printed in the warrant, which is, I think, what will be done.
Yep, which was done. That's correct. It's what was printed in the Finance Committee report.
Yes, that's certainly what we voted at the CPC. Is there a second on that motion? We have people from the Housing Authority here to explain the project and make a presentation.
Mr. Crimmins.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, Barry Crimmins, Precinct 4, and a proud member of the Stoughton Housing Authority, here along with my fellow board members, Chairman Kevin Wilder, Treasurer Arthur Slate, also Donald Brady, also our Executive Director Greg Bartlett, and also our project architects for this project at the far end, Mr. John Martin, and along with Bill Linwood. I stand before you to speak in favor of a project that I think the town is going to be tremendously proud of if it agrees with us to approve this project. It is something that has been identified in various town reports as a need in this community, additional elderly housing. It is a need that we certainly recognize on the Stoughton Housing Authority based on the wait list that we have for elderly housing that runs in excess of a year and a half to 2 years and contains presently over 200 names on our current wait list. With that, I'd like to just mention a couple of things about the project. The property, if you're not familiar, and as many of you know from the mailings that we sent out, we have conducted a couple of open houses so that folks could come and see the property. The weather didn't necessarily cooperate with us on the days that we conducted the open houses, and other events were also competing with us. But the open houses were well attended by town meeting members and other town officials. The project has received the unanimous support of the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, the Municipal Regulations Committee, and the Planning Board. The project consists of the acquisition by the Stoughton Housing Authority of the property at 710 Turnpike Street at the corner of Central Street. Many of you know it as the Swans Tavern building. And would allow the Stoughton Housing Authority to convert the former Solomon Schechter Day School into 20 units of elderly housing. We would also be able to get an additional 2 units of elderly housing back online, 2 units, currently located at 4 Capon Street, where our administrative offices are presently located, by means of moving the administrative offices from the 4 Capon Street location to the 710 Turnpike Street location in the Swans Tavern building. The space at Swans Tavern is greater than we need for just the housing authority, so we have also indicated to the town that additional space could be made available to the town as the town sees fit. So in addition to the housing authority being up there, it may also be able to house one or more other agencies or departments of the town as the town would determine. We have signed a purchase and sales agreement to acquire this property. We are getting the property at a discounted rate based on both the amount that the town has the property assessed for and an appraisal that was conducted just a year ago in April of 2013 that determined the value of the property to be close to $1 million. It's assessed for over $1 million. We're acquiring the property for $700,000. We would not be able to do this project were it not for the Community Preservation Act funding. The state, through the Department of Housing and Community Development, DHCD, is what funds the Stoughton Housing Authority as it funds the other housing authorities throughout the Commonwealth. Several years ago, the state stopped funding in housing authorities' budgets any monies for new construction and only funds money for what's called modernization, basically maintaining your existing stock of housing, but has not made any money available for new construction. So we, on the Housing Authority, I think have done a great job, Greg and his staff, maintenance staff and office staff, in maintaining the existing housing that we have at the various projects throughout the town, but unfortunately we haven't been able to add to that stock, and that has also resulted in the wait list being as long as it is. It was a goal of mine when I decided to get back on the Housing Authority to see if there was something that we could do to try to alleviate that problem, see if we could create some new housing. Greg identified the property at 710 Turnpike Street as being for sale. It had been for sale for a while, been for sale for a lot more money than we were able to acquire it for based on our purchase and sales agreement. And he began the negotiations with the owners. And once those negotiations got to the point where it looked like this was going to become a reality, he brought it to the board for the board's endorsement. We looked at it. We considered the pros and cons of the project, and we considered the funding source from the Community Preservation Act as a possibility to be able to acquire this property, which, as I said, without that funding, we could not do. This property, as you all know, has been for sale, excuse me, as I indicated, and if the Housing Authority does not buy it, somebody is going to buy it and do something with it. By virtue of the Housing Authority buying it, we provide a certain degree of certainty to the neighbors that have been concerned based on some other potential uses that have been talked about and considered for this site. The Stoughton Housing Authority would, again, have 20 units of elderly housing there and its administrative offices, a use which is not a high traffic generator, is not a heavy noisemaker. We have a few of our elders who occasionally have to be reminded to turn down their radios at night, but other than that, they tend to be relatively quiet. So we think the project is truly, to use the old cliche, a win-win situation. And the project has two components to it. And Mr. Moderator, before I get too far along, I wonder if it would be appropriate for a motion to suspend the rules so both Articles 33B and 33C could be discussed at the same time and then voted separately?
That would be within.
Thank you. Do we?
All those in favor of? All those opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you. The reason there are two articles, the property, it's one property, 710 Turnpike Street, but it has sort of separate and distinct components to it physically. You know, the original structure was a Swan's Tavern building right on the corner, built right around the beginning of the 1800s. It has quite a historic character and history about it that I won't bore you with at the moment. But if you did have the opportunity to come to the open house, you could see some of the construction detail that we're hoping to try to restore. There were some things that were done within the structure that we don't particularly like, including the sprinkler system, the way it was constructed. But the beauty of the structure and the rest of the property is it has infrastructure in place that if we had to start from scratch would cost us millions of dollars to construct. There's an elevator in the property. There is a sprinkler system in the property. It has fire alarms already in the property. The heating system is updated. The electrical system is updated. All of the mechanical systems have been updated in the property. The reason we have two separate articles is based on the Community Preservation Act. A portion of it is for housing, which would be the construction of the 20 units of elderly housing, and then the historic preservation component is for the Swan's Tavern piece to try to rehabilitate and preserve that property as much as we possibly can. We're not going to bring back the original Swan's Tavern. I don't want anyone to get the misimpression that what we're going to have at the end of the day is going to look like what was constructed there in the 1800s. The Community Preservation Act allows us to make the property functional while at the same time trying to preserve as much of the integrity and character of the structure as possible. So that is what we hope to do. If all goes well here at town meeting tonight, and again, I believe, Mr. Moderator, Monday night when the zoning amendments are expected to be taken up?
Yes.
Because there is a zoning amendment that we also need in order to, for this property to be used for elderly housing. That will be addressed Monday night. You may have received a handout on your way in tonight that addresses a position that the Housing Authority has taken relative to the zoning amendments that we hope will expedite that process on Monday. So if this body sees fit, and I certainly hope that it will, to approve these two articles tonight for the funding, for the purchase of the property and the rehabilitation and conversion into 20 units of elderly housing, and the administrative offices of the Housing Authority to move up there. And then again, if this body sees fit, to approve the zoning amendment that has been proposed for this. We will be armed with what we need to proceed to hopefully have, subject to a special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals and a couple other permitting issues, what we hope to be a fall closing on this property. And assuming we are able to close on the property in the fall, if all goes well, perhaps a year from next fall, we could be housing our first residents up at that property at 710 Turnpike Street. And mark your calendars. Hopefully, you're all invited to the ribbon cutting if all goes well here tonight and on Monday night. So with that, Mr. Moderator, I'll be happy to step back and try to address any questions or comments that anybody may have. Thank you very much for your consideration. We certainly hope that you see this project for the benefit that we see it for, and you'll support this project with your vote. Thank you.
Are there any members of the Housing Authority which want to enhance this discussion? Okay. Has anybody got any questions? Mr. Mullen? And please come.
Bob Mullen, Precinct 2. I'll be very quick. Obviously, as it's been explained, it's a win-win for the town. This location of this building is in Precinct 2, not too far from the other members from Precinct 2. When the for sale sign went up a few years ago, we were very concerned about the property. It's a fairly large property. This is the best best deal we can get. Kudos to the CPC and the Housing Authority for working this partnership together. I hope everybody supports this. This is something for the town to pretty much occupy an empty building. You don't want this building to deteriorate anymore. So let's do something for the town. This helps our seniors, gives us 20 apartments for the seniors. And I don't think anybody, if you're going to vote against it, I'll talk to your side. We'll walk you down there, okay? I do hope everybody and all the precincts support this 100%. Thank you.
The gentleman. Please give your name and precinct.
Sean Carr, Precinct 4. A couple questions looking through this. You're looking for $1.5 million that you also need to raise $950,000 for to get the 1.5, correct? It says here that you will get the $1.5 million after sources in the amount of not less than $950 that you've raised outside funds.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So that's $2.5 million. And then in the $350,000, also a requirement to get the $350 is, again, outside funds of another $350. So now it's a little over $3 million. Does that include the $700,000 purchase price? And is that expected to be the entire cost of the project?
Mr. Crimmins.
Okay. And again, this would house up to 20 residents. Okay. Just want to clarify, you're not coming back to ask for more money later. Okay. Thank you.
Just very briefly, the CPC voted unanimously to approve this, and you will see a pattern here. We are giving favor to those kinds of projects that have matching funds so that we can leverage the CPA funds by a factor of 3, 4, or 5. In the case of the State Theater, it's as much as 6 times leverage. So that's part of why we were so enthusiastic about this project.
I did hear the motion to cut off debate. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, debate is cut off. If this is not unanimous, I will require a standing count. Yes, 33B, which, just to clarify, is to appropriate $1,500,000 to fund the acquisition and rehabilitation of community housing for the elderly at 710 Turnpike Street. And then the usual legal stuff is in there. That's what we're voting on, just at this stage. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? I will declare it unanimous. Now we go to 33C. You want me to read the proper motion, Mr. Morton?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to authorize the sum up to $350,000 as approved by the Community Preservation Committee to be used for historical rehabilitation and restoration of the Swans Tavern as printed in the warrant on pages 95 and 96, and that this will be a borrowing article as printed in the warrant on page 95 and 96.
Right. No.
Very briefly, I will say the CPC approved this article unanimously as well, and there was a great deal of negotiation that went into this. It took several meetings to get to this article, but we were very pleased that it was an accurate representation of what would be required to do restoration of the Swans Tavern. We could have authorized much more, but we think that this is sufficient to cover the kinds of restorations that are important to assure the security of the building and the integrity of the building.
Mr. Crimmins, you wish to discuss this phase of the...
I am going to abide by your recommendation, Mr. Moderator, and step back.
Does anybody else wish to discuss it? The only thing is town council has reminded me that we do have to read into the records the correct form and format of this motion, so I do have that here, and I will read it in. I know we can't take shortcuts at this last stage. Again, that is to appropriate $350,000 for the purpose of restoring and rehabilitating the former Swan Tavern located at 710 Turnpike Street to be acquired by the Stoughton Housing Authority, as approved by the Community Preservation Committee, according to the terms described in the printed warrant, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, be authorized to borrow $350,000 under Mass General Laws, Chapter 44B, Section 11, or any other enabling authority, including, but not limited to, Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Sections 7 and 8. This requires a 2/3 vote, so if it's not unanimous, I will have it take account. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Once again, it's a unanimous vote.
Thank you very much.
We have one more to go.
Did we table 32? To receive
30.
the reports of the CPC?
Well, 32 we already voted. We accept-
Okay, if we voted on it, you received the reports before we gave them, but that's okay. I want to say one more thing. The CPC has a plan, the Community Preservation Plan is on the town website. Go to town website, community boards, go down to Community Preservation, get on our website, click on Community Preservation Plan. You will see what our priorities are, and you will see what the procedure is for applying for grants and what kinds of projects we can support and what kind of projects we favor to support. We commend your attention to that website. Thank you very, very much. Oh, yeah, we've got one more. We got one more. We've got one more.
All right. We have D, which is the playground rehabilitation. Do you want me to give the proper wording of this motion, since I have it in my files and cite everything?
I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate, transfer, or borrow a sufficient sum of money from the CPA.
Get it, that's the warrant article. Town Meeting 101 is a motion that states exactly what you're going to do. So you will find, I will read it in the proper form to keep everybody out of trouble. And that is to appropriate $585,000 from CPA Open Space and Recreation Funds for the construction and installation of new playground equipment, resilient surfacing, walkways and other amenities at the Pierce Street Playground, and as described, I got a couple of words missing, as described in the warrant and approved by the Community Preservation Committee, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, be authorized to borrow $585,000 under Mass General Laws, Chapter 44B, Section 11, or any other enabling authority, including but not limited to MGL Chapter 44, Sections 7 and 8. That's the technical way to put this.
I so move.
I hear a second. Now, this is a separate subject. Do we have somebody representing Recreation or this?
Yes, there will be people from Recreation to speak on the article. I want to say the CPC approved this article unanimously, and there is a contribution from the town as well with some of the site work, so there is even leverage in this article, and there are representatives of the Recreation Department here to
Mr. Dennison.
speak on the issue.
If you'll bear with us, we're going to do something a little different. We have a short 5-minute video that highlights our plan and our program. And I thank Ms. Stephanie Patton from Oasis helped put it together, and here we go. Halloran Park is kind of a special place in Stoughton, and it is our intent in this playground renovation to very much extend the park down into what was kind of a separate place where the Cap Playground was, and to kind of unify the park with the playground.
Knapp. I have 2 kids that are both under 2, and when we heard that the playground had been knocked down, I was so sad because we've lived here for a while, within walking distance, but we enjoy coming here, and we're excited to have something for their age group and that we'll be able to use as a family.
Over the last few years, we walk around every morning, and it's a lovely place. It became a very social event. We formed some fast friendships out here, and not just with the dogs, but some of these roommates.
And we find a lot of fellowship down here. A lot of great people come down here. Some to walk their dogs like we're doing, and some just to come and just walk and exercise. It's one of the gems of Stoughton, I think.
Amy Starkenberg, and this is my dog Kenai, and we love Halloran Park. We come here almost twice a day, and it's always great to see people out playing volleyball on Sundays and the kids in the playground. So looking forward to the rebuilding of the playground.
We're very much committed to extending this parkland, providing better lighting, better security, and making it a park that everybody can use.
And this expansion of the park to include some new playground equipment, benches, and a walking path will be beneficial to all of Stoughton. So I'm really excited about this project, and I appreciate everybody's hard work and support of this entire project, not only from the ones that we're doing now, but for those who started it in 1989. This has been a lasting tribute to Stoughton's strengths and its ability to come together. So thanks very much.
Hi, my name is Nicholas Laureato. This park supports Stoughton. Everyone likes to come over here and play basketball and all that. I know it's a good thing getting rebuilt because it needs it. So people come here every day, even cold, winter. It's a nice park. That's good. I like how they're doing it to renovate the town, help the kids out. So good job, so proud of you guys.
It's a place where everybody can just go out and play and have fun.
I like that big stuff in my little jump a big slide, a little slide, baby slide.
To see this marvelous green space that we have down there, it's definitely the jewel of Stoughton. I think that the addition of a new playground to that will just top the whole thing off. To see the amount of people that are using it, from 1 to 101, they're out there with tricycles and skateboards and bikes and walking dogs and playing frisbee and flying kites, and it's a great place to be.
Thank you for your patience. I hope you found the video somewhat informative. Just a couple of quick thank yous to the Youth Commission, Karen Hall, and Oasis, Stephanie Patton, for their support. Police Department, Deputy Chief Rob Devine, who worked with me very early in the initial concept of what we wanted to do and how we wanted to integrate the park with the playground and create a much improved space for all of our residents. Also pioneering healthy communities in the Stoughton YMCA, who gave us a little seed money 2 years ago so that I could come to you with a viable feasibility plan last year. The engineering department, Mark Tisdale and his staff saved us thousands of dollars in doing our original survey, and did a couple of updates since then, did it in timely fashion, and that saved us some money. And we were also able to leverage serious money towards this project with the work of our Public Works Department. Mr. Batchelder and his crews have already been out there many days, many man-hours. The demolition of the cap was completed, the removal of, and a very clean removal, I might say, of all the materials and all those old tires. And I want to thank the CPC for putting up with me for 2 years, chasing you down. And we're finally at this point where I hope we succeed in obtaining funding so we can move forward with the project. Just a couple of quick things. Previous speaker in the other presentation on the Swans Tavern property mentioned that that project met certain goals in certain town documents, and I want to be clear that this park project and playground renovation clearly meets stated goals in documents that I actually read. The Open Space and Recreation Plan, which is under revision, but it does clearly address the need to provide many parks or to provide parks that give access to all citizens. And we do have some parks in Stoughton. We have a lot of playgrounds, but not all of them provide access to all citizens. Another goal in our open space and recreation plan is to provide adequate access to safe, well-maintained recreational facilities for all Stoughton residents. So we're moving toward that by doing this project. And most recently, our master plan, in all these forums that we've had in the master plan also identifies goals that this project will address. And especially, one of the major strategies is to maintain and improve existing facilities and to create a vibrant and integrated park network that brings community together. And you get a sense from the video that Halloran Park and the adjacent playground is a place of community, and not just in its informal use, but in its formal use. The Community Events Committee holds some of our events there. There are some larger organizations that use the park, family movie night, those sorts of things. So it is a place where community comes together. And not to mention birthday parties and reunions and so forth. Last of all, I would just like to mention, and then our architect, who has worked very hard and has been incredibly responsive throughout this process, is here to do a brief presentation, and then we'll take questions. But I just want to be clear that this plan achieves what I call a delicate balance between the limits of what really is precious CPC money. And I thank them for going as far as they went. I think we can do better, actually, than the 585 in the end when we get bids. And I know and I'm aware that there are recreation projects down the road that will come out of some studies at Cape and Reynolds Farm and Glen Echo that will also come back to CPC. So on the one hand, I understand the pressures on that committee. On the other hand, I understand that there are some people out there who want more, who want a bigger, a more elaborate playground. The balance I think we've achieved provides something for everybody, all age ranges, the walkers, the little kids, and everybody in between. Finally, when we build this, the design playground and the design park expansion is something we can maintain within our existing budgets. Mr. Batchelder and I collaborate on that maintenance. He does most of the labor, and his guys and women, but and Recreation would fund other parts of it. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca Bachand. Rebecca works for a landscape architectural firm we call UBLA, Ulrich Bachand Landscape Architect. She's going to give a brief overview of some of the highlights of the park expansion, including some thoughts about the playground, and we'll answer any questions after that.
Hi everyone. As John said, I'm Rebecca Bachand. I'm a landscape architect with UBLA, and we've been working together to really provide a signature playground for the entire community, covering all age ranges. And in addition to the play elements that you might be thinking of, you may have seen this rendering either in the recreation department or out in the hall this week through town meeting. We'll be adding at the street level some new accessible parking spaces, fence and curb, and a planted island to tie in to the look of Halloran Park up at Pierce Street. We'll then have a sloping accessible walkway that will actually tie Pierce Street to the Jones School playground and the existing walkway that loops back to Halloran Park through the wooded area down there. And then in the central space, which is largely where the existing structures were until very recently, thanks to the DPW, we'd have this play circle that'll be level and paved in a port-in-place resilient surface. And this is where the majority of the play components will be. And this play surface, while being more expensive initially than the wood, fiber, and sand that have been out there in the past, will actually provide multiple layers. The first being a really long-term wearing course which is over a cushioned course for safety, which allows up to an 8-foot fall height from the play structures. And then underneath that is actually a drainage layer that'll really ensure long-term stability over time. And this surface, the poured-in-place rubber, actually has virtually no maintenance whatsoever. You can blow it off with leaf blowers as opposed to having to refill almost annually the wood fiber mulch, which John and the DPW can tell you they've been out there doing constantly. It wears out when the kids play and run, and especially under the swings, this is really critical. The poured-in-place surface also allows for if you're walking here or in a wheelchair or have a stroller, you can easily transition from the asphalt walks right into the play surface and get to any structure very easily. In this lower area, we have the one set of tot swings here, and then in this area, we actually have the larger swings with an accessible swing chair, and that ties into the embankment slide. So we really have the opportunity to take advantage of that existing flat area and then build up a slide into the existing hill, taking advantage of the existing topography and maintaining most of the existing trees that were on the site. So you get a lot of great shade, you still have that really great rural natural look to the whole park, and you get to integrate the Halloran Park walking loop with a new small walking loop for toddlers or trike tracks that maybe you don't want to take that entire Halloran Park loop. It might be a little long for you. And it should be noted, we've selected the play equipment not just for fun or aesthetics, but for the play quality. We're really providing a unique experience for all the age groups. In addition to the swings and slides, we've worked with an independent play consultant to use a variety of play equipment from different manufacturers so that we really get added value of nature play, parallel play, motor skill development, fantasy play. We have a little performance area up here using some of the reclaimed boulders that were in the way of the entrance and the existing walk or the proposed walkways to really create places where kids can really use their imagination, engage with nature, and have these versatile play elements such as climbers, structures that really let you run back and forth across a bridge, have vantage points that let you take in views of the entire park, and really have a unique place that's a real signature to the town to replace that great cat playground that I think everybody was really fond of. So we'd like to open it up to questions about anything you have here for me or John. I see pointing.
Ms. Walsh?
Cynthia Walsh, Precinct 2. I move the question.
I would not accept that at this time because unless you cut off someone before we even have a chance to get recognized. So I do not at this time. So they were right there.
I just got a short, quick question. When people euphemistically walk their dogs, is there a area there where the dogs, in case anybody walks their cat, can do their thing and not where the kids are playing?
We provide Pet Waste Station, which is essentially a metal box with bags. People pick up their dog waste and dispose of it.
Thank you.
I wish 100% of the people did.
Well,
But we've got pretty good compliance. Mr. Batchelor's guys don't run over as much of it as they used to when they run the lawnmowers.
well, I mean, no, you're not going to get 100% compliance, but you're making it possible at least. Thank you.
Mr. Murphy?
Move the question.
All right. As that's to cut off debate. All those in favor of moving the question, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, the motion carries. If this is not unanimous, I will ask for a standing count. And I will repeat the motion so we have everything in the records together. And that is to appropriate $585,000 from CPA Open Space and Recreation Funds for the construction and installation of new playground equipment, resilient surfacing, walkways, and other amenities at the Pierce Street Playground, and as described in the warrant and approved by the Community Preservation Committee, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, be authorized to borrow $585,000 under Mass General Laws, Chapter 44B, Section 11, or any other enabling authority, including but not limited to Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Sections 7 and 8. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? I will declare it unanimous.
Thank you all. The purpose of the CPA is to build a better community by doing projects that we otherwise couldn't afford, and I thank you for your support.
On behalf of the users of that playground and the many that will come over many years, thank you.
Now we're going to switch channels for a minute. Just as a reminder, Article 57 had been approved and okayed by this body to be moved to next Monday's meeting. We have on the paper, we go to Article 10, ID 10 revolving fund account authorization that was tabled for some corrections, and we have had a handout that is a little different from what was originally provided. Making a record of this. And this is 1018. And this, if there's, I've got a few copies still up here. 3 pages. And I will have the Finance Committee Chairman make the motion first to take it off the table, and the second is to...
Motion to take Article 10 off the table.
All those in favor of taking off the table, say aye.
Aye.
It's off the table.
Article 10, ID 10. And again, the motion is the top of the chart for the revolving accounts. To reauthorize in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E, 53 and a half, the revolving accounts that are specified in the chart below, which are to be expended under the authority and direction of the agencies or officials identified, to be credited with receipts from specified revenue sources, to be expended for the stated purposes and not to exceed the stated spending limits, and further, to carry forward any monies remaining in said funds at the end of FY14 into FY15 for said purposes.
I did it. Do I hear a second? I'll declare that it's on the floor. Is there any discussion? Gee, that's easy. I just would like to make a note that the new column on this chart, Mr. DeFelice, new column on this chart is titled Authorization. And if there's any question as to what that means, we'll defer to the town council. Mr. DeFelice.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a quick question on the section at the bottom of page 23, modifying Conservation Commission programs, etc. There's two items there. One talks about equipment purchases of various equipment. Then there's another line a little further down, talks about elimination of aquatic and non-aquatic invasive vegetative species and so forth. My question to you, to the Conservation Commission, is the Commission planning in that statement to buy a hydro rake?
Does anybody have an answer to
Not for $25,000.
Mr. Hartman?
I can't tell you that the hydro rake is not in the capital plan. It was struck from the capital plan.
It was. Thank you.
Any further? And I'll call for a vote on this. There's no stipulation. This is a majority vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? I will declare it a vote. I will declare it unanimous. And this is 5/14, 10/21. Yeah. We want to put a decimal in there, make it 10/21 and a half. No. Oh, well, no, we want to do, the next one on our, that was tabled to this evening specifically was Article 21. We
Motion to
have-
take Article 21 off the table, Mr. Moderator?
Just give me a second. Yeah. My binder is filling up with stuff. Okay. Well, you can't quite do that. This was originally put on the floor by Mr. Cohn from the Municipal Regulations Committee. Mr. Hill took it off the table. Did I take a vote on taking it off the table? All those in favor of taking off the table, say aye.
Aye.
Did. Voted. Mr. Cohn, do you want to restate? And there was a piece that came out with something written across the top. It was attached to.
I'll be happy to read it on your behalf if you'd like.
Okay.
Article 21, ID 21, and on behalf of the municipal regulations, the motion that the town vote to amend Chapter 47, Section 6, Paragraph A of the town bylaws as printed in the warrant. And the paragraph that's printed below the motion is the correct paragraph.
Why don't you read that whole paragraph, just so that...
No purchase or contract to purchase supplies or services in excess of $10,000 or the threshold for soliciting quotes or responses or for bidding as mandated by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30, Section 39M, Public Works, Chapter 30B, Uniform Procurement Act for Goods and Services, and Chapter 149, Building Construction Projects, by any municipal department other than the school department shall be valid, and that the town shall make no payment for such purchases unless a written purchase order has been issued in advance of such purchase to the vendor or contractor. Such purchase orders shall be certified by the town manager or his/her designee as in compliance with the state and local procurement statutes and regulations, and certified by the town accountant or his/her designee as to the availability of funds.
Is there any further discussion on this? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? I will declare it a majority vote, unless somebody wants to have a standing count. I will declare it approved, and it is now 10:25. Well, I'm going to tell you, we have several capital outlay articles, and I don't think we could do this very quickly. I will go along that. All those in favor of adjourning till Monday at 7:30? Mr. Cohn? No, the more we procrastinate, the longer we'll be procrastinating. At 7:30, as it's been posted. We will begin where we left off at Article 28.